Hampton Court Palace, 1530. A nobleman rushes through the corridors carrying a velvet-wrapped portable toilet. Behind him, servants carry water, towels, and a wash bowl. King Henry VIII has just signaled he needs the privy, and Sir Henry Norris, one of the most powerful men in England, is about to attend to His Majesty's bowel movements. This is the groom of the King's close stool, the man responsible for Henry VIII's bathroom needs. And despite what you're thinking, this was the most coveted position at court. Henry had 4 grooms during his reign. He knighted all of them, because in Tudor England, the man who held the toilet paper held the kingdom. Henry VII creates the position. The job didn't start with Henry VIII. His father, Henry VII, created the groom of the stool position around 1495, when he established the Privy Chamber, a series of private rooms including the king's bedroom and waste closet. In medieval England, even bathroom breaks weren't private. Privacy as we understand it didn't exist. The close stool was a portable commode covered in pink or red velvet, containing a chamber pot. The groom carried it everywhere, along with all necessary supplies for royal elimination. The word stool referred to both the furniture and the act. The groom literally monitored the king's stools, tracking consistency, frequency, and health. He reported everything to royal physicians. Your bowel movements could indicate disease, poison, or divine displeasure. The groom was essentially the king's personal health monitor. Why noblemen competed for this job. Here's what sounds insane. Sons of noblemen and members of the gentry competed for this position. These weren't desperate peasants. These were educated, wealthy young men fighting for the right to attend the king's toilet. Why? Access? The groom of the stool had unlimited, unobstructed access to the king in his most private moments. While other courtiers competed for audiences, the groom spent hours alone with Henry every day. In the Privy Chamber, the inner sanctum where decisions were made and secrets shared, David Starkey, the Tudor historian, writes, "The groom of the stool had the most menial tasks. His standing, though, was the highest. The royal body service must have been seen as entirely honorable, without a trace of the demeaning." The position brought enormous wealth, too. William Compton, Henry VIII's first groom, earned £2,000 annually from land grants and offices, equal to the income of the richest bishops. Sir William Compton, the first groom. William Compton served as Henry VIII's first groom of the stool from the beginning of Henry's reign in 1509. He was one of Henry's closest childhood friends and remained intimately connected to the king throughout his service. Compton accumulated massive wealth and influence. He controlled access to Henry, managed the privy purse, the king's personal expenses, and acted as virtual private secretary. He received gifts from courtiers desperate to gain the king's favor through him. Compton's tenure ended tragically in 1528 when sweating sickness, a mysterious epidemic that killed thousands, took his life. The disease struck suddenly, killing victims within hours. One day, Compton was the second most powerful man in England. The next, he was dead. Sir Henry Norris, Power and Peril. Henry Norris replaced Compton in 1526. Born around 1481, Norris came to court young and became one of Henry's most intimate friends. The king granted him offices across England, keeper of parks, bailiff of multiple estates, positions that generated enormous income. As groom, Norris governed all men who attended the Privy Chamber. He kept track of royal expenditures. He ensured the king's jewels and plate remained secure. Most importantly, he controlled who could and couldn't access Henry in private. But Norris made a fatal mistake. He became an ally of Anne Boleyn. When Henry decided to destroy Anne in 1536, he destroyed her supporters too. On May 1st, 1536, Norris was arrested on fabricated charges of adultery with the Queen. Despite torture and promises of pardon if he confessed, Norris maintained his innocence. On May 17, 1536, Henry Norris was beheaded on Tower Hill. His crime? Being too close to the wrong woman and knowing too many of the king's secrets. Sir Thomas Heneage, the diplomat. Thomas Heneage became Groom of the Stool after Norris's execution in 1536. He was more cautious than his predecessor. He survived by knowing when to speak and when to stay silent. Heneage and his colleague Anthony Denny were trusted with Henry's most intimate secrets. The king told them he doubted Anne of Cleves's virginity because of her breasts so slack. These weren't just bathroom attendants. They were confidants. Heneage served until 1546, accumulating lands and offices. He navigated the dangerous waters of Henry's court for a decade, no small achievement when your predecessor was beheaded. He understood that proximity to power required discretion, loyalty, and knowing exactly how much the king wanted to hear. Sir Anthony Denny, the kingmaker. Anthony Denny became Henry VIII's last and most powerful Groom of the Stool in 1546. He wielded authority no previous groom had achieved. Denny possessed a golden key on a blue ribbon that could lock and unlock the king's personal chambers. More significantly, Denny controlled the king's dry stamp, effectively his signature. This gave Denny power to sign documents in the king's name. As Henry deteriorated in his final years, Denny became the gateway to royal authority. He helped draft Henry's will, determining the succession of England. On January 27, 1547, it was Anthony Denny who told the dying king he should prepare his soul. Henry was dying. Denny was at his deathbed when Henry died on January 28th, depicted fourth from the right in the famous deathbed portrait. Denny's power demonstrates the groom's evolution from bathroom attendant to virtual prime minister. The actual duties. So what did the groom actually do? Despite centuries of jokes, historians debate whether he literally wiped the king's bottom. There are no records confirming this explicitly. He certainly helped the king undress and redress. Men's Tudor clothing involved multiple layers that required assistance. The groom carried the close stool everywhere. He monitored the king's diet and meal times. He predicted when the king would need the toilet and organized the day around it. He inspected the results and reported to physicians. He also managed the king's private finances, controlled access to the Privy Chamber, kept the king's valuables secure, and acted as personal secretary. The toilet duties were actually the smallest part of the job. The power of the position. A jealous duke once complained to Henry that he would give his fees, offices, and rewards to boys rather than noblemen. The duke couldn't understand why the king elevated toilet attendants over aristocrats. Henry understood perfectly. The groom's power came from proximity. He heard the king's unguarded thoughts. He knew the king's health, moods, and secrets. Other courtiers could be lied to. The groom saw everything. As one historian notes, the mere word of the gentleman of the Privy Chamber was sufficient evidence of the king's will. When the groom spoke, he spoke with royal authority. That power made him feared throughout the court. Why all four were knighted. Every one of Henry VIII's four grooms of the stool, William Compton, Henry Norris, Thomas Heneage, and Anthony Denny, received knighthoods. This wasn't coincidence. It was recognition of their unique status. Knights of the realm. Men who'd wiped, or at least attended, the royal posterior. But the knighthoods acknowledged what everyone at court understood. These men weren't servants in any conventional sense. They were power brokers, advisors, and gatekeepers. The physical intimacy of attending the king created political intimacy. You can't be vulnerable before someone, literally, without trusting them completely. That trust translated to power unlike any other position at court. After Henry, the office continues. The Groom of the Stool didn't die with Henry VIII. His son Edward VI had his own groom. But when Mary I and Elizabeth I took the throne, the position disappeared. It was inappropriate for male servants to attend Queen's toileting needs. Elizabeth I created the Lady of the Bedchamber instead, held by Catherine Ashley, with similar responsibilities but appropriate for a female monarch. Under the Stuart kings, the position returned but was renamed Groom of the Stool, from Latin stola, meaning clothing, emphasizing wardrobe duties over toilet attendance. The position survived in various forms until 1901, when King Edward VII finally abolished it. After 400 years, monarchs decided they could manage their own bathroom breaks. The legacy. Today, the Groom of the Stool is a punchline, the butt of jokes about history's worst jobs, but that misses the point entirely. This wasn't the worst job in Tudor England. It was the best. 4 men held it under Henry VIII. All became knights. All accumulated enormous wealth. 3 survived to retirement. Only one, Henry Norris, was executed, and his crime was political, not professional. The Groom of the Stool proves that power isn't always obvious. Sometimes the most intimate access creates the most influence. Sometimes the person holding the chamber pot is more powerful than the person wearing the crown. History remembers Henry VIII as a king who executed wives and broke with Rome. But for 38 years, the most powerful person in England wasn't Henry. It was whoever held his toilet. That's the real story of the Groom of the Stool.